everybody, it has been a while, which means something special is happening this week. If you happen to be watching this video between May the 1st and May the 5th, 2023, that means that the entire Love Notions website is 40% off. Yep, 40% off site-wide. I can't talk today. Site-wide, all courses, all patterns. Plus, if you use the code SOKIRA, I will put it on the screen, you can get an extra 10% off any Love Notions pattern. So that's 10% on top of the sale prices. How cool. So usually when there's a sale, if you're not new to my channel, I would come here and promote all of the nice fancy patterns, but this time I wanted to keep it pretty basic, and I will be promoting the Cadence top and dress pattern. So if you are stuck trying to figure out what to buy in the sale, this is a really good basic. It's classic, it's timeless, it has a lot of fun options on its own, but I also put my own little spin on it to show you just how hackable this pattern is. So I'm currently wearing my little hack, and of course you would have seen it in the thumbnail. I made a little tie side top from the Cadence pattern, and I will put up my inspiration picture so you can see where I got this idea from. This was a very simple hack, and I was able to whip it up out of just 1 yard of fabric. This is a poly crepe fabric, like a bubble crepe type of vibe. So I hope you enjoy this fun little super cute hack. It's a very short video, very sweet and simple. I hope that you give it a try, and if you do, make sure to tag me on Instagram at Island Socialists. Enjoy, and I will see you in my next video. Bye. Okay, welcome to my sewing table. So we'll be working with the Cadence pattern, and here I have my front and my back. This is the shirt length, and I have printed the sizes large and extra large because I need to grade the hip area to extra large as normal. So because these are so long, I am going to turn them sideways to demonstrate so that you can see clearly. So this is the front pattern piece of the shirt in size large. As I said, I did the regular neckline without the notch, but of course if you prefer the notch, go right ahead. I am going to cut on the size large line and grade from the waist notch out to the extra large hip. However, in the inspiration photo, there's a little bit of blousing, so I needed to add some length to the waist, so that when I do my little ties, we will have little blousing effect. So I did go ahead and add 1 1/4 inches to the waist length. I created my own lengthen and shorten line 1 inch up from the waist notch, and then I added in 1 1/4 inches. So the next thing I did was draw 4 inches down from the waist notch, and that is where I'm going to cut my hem line. So I just do a straight line across and mark where I would grade, and then I am just gonna cut, and that would be my new front. So this is what my new front pattern piece looks like. So we have the extra 1 1/4 inches added at the waist above the notch, and then from the notch down is 4 inches in length, because as you can tell, it's a fairly short blouse. So now to make the changes to the back pattern piece. Here's my back pattern piece, and again I drew my own lengthen and shorten line 1 inch above the waist notch, and I added in my 1 1/4 inches, and then again from the waist notch down is 4 inches long. So I am going to go ahead and cut this. Now for the back, I do need to make one additional change, and that is I am going to straighten the back, the center back, and remove the seam allowance so that I can cut it on the fold, because right now it is cut with a seam, and I want to kind of mimic the inspiration blouse, the back without the seam. So the first thing I am going to do is straighten the line I'm going to connect the bottom point to the top. And then the next thing I'm going to do is take that in 3/8 of an inch to remove that seam allowance. And that is my new cut line, so that I can cut on the fold. And I'm going to make sure to add a note so I don't forget. So now we are ready to cut out our front and back pattern pieces. So now that I have my front and back cut out and also my all-in-one facings for the burrito method on the tank, the next step is to measure to create our casings. The Cadence actually already has a drawstring and casing option, but because I am doing the casing a little bit differently, I need to remeasure. So to recreate my inspiration picture, I want to have one front casing and one back casing, and then there will be one drawstring passing through the back casing and another drawstring passing through the front casing, and then they will tie at the sides. So I'm going to measure to find out how long I need to make my casings. I am going to use the same 1.5 inches width that is recommended for the casing in the tutorial, and then I'm just going to work out my own length. So the first thing I am going to do is mark 1 inch in from the waist notch, and that is because I want to leave a little bit of room so that when the side seam is sewn up, the edge of the casing is not like right up against the edge. The drawstring could pass through properly. So I'm gonna mark my 1 inch. And then I am going to measure from that inch to the fold line, which is 9.5 inches on the back. And then on the front it is 9 3/4. And because it is on the fold, we need to multiply by 2. So 9.5 plus 9.5 is 18, plus 1 is 19 inches. And then 19.5 inches for the front. And then I also want to turn under the edges of the casing just a little 1/4 inch so that the raw edge isn't showing. So 1/4 inch on each side gives us 1/2 inch. So total of 19.5 inches for the back, and this is by 1.5 inches wide. And then for the front, when we add our 1/2 inch, it is a total of 20 inches by 1.5 inches wide. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out my casings now. So here's what I did for the drawstrings. Since my front casing is 20 inches long, I multiplied by 2.5, which is 50, and so I cut my drawstrings 50 inches long by 2 inches wide. I find it just easier to sew a drawstring when you have a wide piece to work with when it's folded over, as opposed to if you have a little baby narrow drawstring like this trying to sew it together. But we will come back to the drawstrings later. I just wanted to mention the measurements I used. You all know I like to wing things and just make up things as I go. So I kind of just made up that 2.5 based on how much extra drawstring I think I want to have hanging at the sides to tie. And we will see how it goes, and if I need to cut off, that should be an easy adjustment. So to start, I'm going with 2.5 times the casing length. So here I have my two casing pieces, and what I did for the casing is I serged the short edge and turned it in 1/4 inch, and then I passed this through my bias tape maker with some starch and the iron, and that is how I have my casings done. Now I did have a little bit of shrinkage, so they are about 1/2 inch short. So instead of being 1 inch from the edge, it's going to be 1 1/4 inches from the edge, which is perfectly fine by me. I don't think that is too bad. So what I did was draw a line from one waist notch over to the other waist notch. That way I have something to line this up against to make sure it is somewhat straight. So now I need to edge stitch the top and edge stitch the bottom, leaving the gaps open on the sides. I already finished the facings with the burrito method on my bodice. This is the front that you're looking at. And I prefer to attach the casings before I swap my side seams. I think it's going to be easier to do this while it's all laying out flat. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the front casing, and then I will do the same for the back, and then I will sew the side seams and get working on my drawstring. So here is what the casing looks like sewn on. I went extremely close to the edge. This is probably 1/16 of an inch. I probably could have done 1/8, but I just wanted to play it safe. Make sure you back stitch your ends really, really well, just because a lot of tension is going to be on this edge when the drawstring is tightened. So now I am going to go ahead and sew up my side seams. Let me show you the other side. The other side is done as well. See, this is the back. So all I have left to do is sew up my side seams. I am going to do a little narrow hem on the edge, and then I am going to make my drawstring and thread it through, and then we'll be all finished. So for the drawstring, I have just folded over in half lengthways, and I am going to sew from the folded edge. I'm going to sew at 3/8 of an inch. I like the look of 1/4 inch, but for the ease of turning it over after, because I don't have a thin enough bodkin to pass through, I'm going to use 3/8. Then I will trim the excess seam allowance down to just about 1/8 of an inch, and then I will use a safety pin to turn this entire drawstring, and then I have to do it all over again. The joys of sewing drawstrings, right? But basically this method is like the same method as probably every other drawstring I've seen. So just go ahead and sew your drawstring whatever way you normally would.